Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is August 25th, 2010, and I'm Darko. Sometimes I have to wonder and recheck what date it is because time is just flying by, it seems. This last video for the day will be just a general news bulletin. And this first one up is U.S. military's top secret X-37B shuttle disappears for 2 weeks, changes orbit. And it's like, well, yeah, I didn't even really know they had this, but I guess that's why it's top secret. It's weird. It kind of looks like it has drone wings, you know. It says secret shuttle launch in April. Skywatchers lose it for 2 weeks. Orbit change shows stealth ability. Where is the X-37B now? And it says the amateur astronomers are enjoying a cat-and-mouse game with the U.S. military and keeping track of its secret space plane, the X-37B. It says the X-37B was launched in April amid much publicity, but scant detail about its true use. It says built by Boeing's Phantom Works division, the X-37B program was originally headed by NASA. It was later turned over to the Pentagon's Research and Development Arm, R&D, and then to a secretive Air Force unit. So yeah, I mean, just by those kind of, not omissions, but just by knowing that, right, you can definitely tell that it is for Space Wars, because NASA is a program of what? Of discovery and exploration. And once it gets turned over to the Pentagon, which I can verify this just through the extensive documenting of daily news, that I've seen this article and I've seen this this little news bit, Pentagon's Research and Development Arm. They did take that and they put more money towards research and development, and so now if the Pentagon's doing it, that means it's going to be used for military. It says on only a very select few in the U.S. military know what it's for, but observers on Earth believe they're putting together the puzzle piece by piece. Several sources claim, quote, arms control advocates who say it's clearly the beginning of the weaponization of space. Well, you know what, I don't think it's the beginning, but you know, like I always have to put out there, if they say they just came up with it, it's probably been around for at least 50 years. So, oh, and this is interesting. This is really interesting, guys, because I just covered, I was going to cover this one, is the X-37B the start of war in space? And then I look down here, it says one of the most anticipated space launches since the original manned space shuttle, Columbia, blasted off in '82. And it says hundreds of millions of dollars have been sunk into it over nearly 20 years of research and development. And it says, and unfortunately that's all we can tell you because the unmanned spacecraft, which looks like a small shuttle, is one of the U.S. military's most tightly guarded secrets. Well, then that's why it probably has wings like a drone, because, well, it is a drone. And like I always like to point out, you have to remember that part of this technocracy, or what people refer to as the New World Order, is basically a society that's very scientific, very you know, big brother, and doesn't have much of a human element in it. Much of the policing that will be going on will be done by the slaves or the sheep themselves, and you know, whatever humans are left are going to be there to kind of aid what machines cannot do, because humans, believe it or not, are actually very good robots, the most sophisticated robots, and until they can totally implement machines, they will, and phase out humans, you know, of course they'll keep us around. And here we go from the London Telegraph. Hitler had Jewish and African roots, DNA tests show. Adolf Hitler is likely to have Jewish and African roots, DNA tests have shown. And this was a lot of, there was a lot of this going around, I guess, right after the war. And I heard of this kind of, it was considered a rumor, but I guess they've taken saliva samples from 39 relatives of the Nazi leader to show he may have had biological links to the subhuman races. That's a quote, of course. That's not me or the Guardian saying that. That he tried to exterminate during the Holocaust. It says Jean-Paul Mulders, a Belgian journalist and a historian, tracked down the Fuhrer's relatives, including an Austrian farmer who was his cousin earlier this year. Said a chromosome called haplogroup which showed up in the samples as a rare in Western Europe and is mostly commonly found in the Berbers of Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, as well as among the Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews. Said one can, from this, postulate that Hitler was related to people whom he despised. And I just wanted to make my little conspiracy, little point here. I hate that word conspiracy, but it's just, I don't know any other way to put it. Here's my take on this little story, is that I believe that Hitler was really put there for a reason in Germany, that is. Germany was, by World War II, definitely a puppet government. They had survived World War I and the Versailles Treaty, and they basically, it was a perfect environment for anyone. It could have been Adolf Hitler, it could have been anybody that came into his role. I would go on a limb and say that whoever it was would have been exactly like Hitler and would have carried out the same mission, which is what, well, not the total extermination of the Jewish population, but something similar. I do believe that, and you can get offended by this, but I do believe that after World War II, there was two big things that came out of World War II that we all have to realize, besides eugenics. And that is what? That is that the first, well, the United Nations were created. There was the League of Nations and there was the United Nations. The United Nations was, League of Nations was the first push towards global government. The United Nations was pretty much a big, firm leap into it. And the other goal of World War II was to create the state of Israel, a state for Jewish people, but not just Jewish people. And I could be wrong on this, and if you are, and you are more educated on this subject, please let me know. But I believe that the Ashkenazis were in fact the ones who put Hitler into power to exterminate many Jews in order to create the state of Israel. It's almost like a way of exterminating yourself, attacking yourself, one of the biggest false flags ever, in order to get what you want. But of course, many of the people were Sephardic Jews that got experiments carried out on them, such as radiation and that. So in summary, what do I believe? Well, what I know is that the West, including specifically Granddaddy Bush, helped fund Hitler and the rise of Hitler and the Third Reich. So you might want to go do research if you don't know about that, but the West did fund Hitler and Nazi Germany. So with FDR at the helm over there, and then Churchill, and then Stalin, this was a global, I guess you can say, conspiracy of the powers that be. And I happen to believe that Hitler was kind of left out to dry there. I think Germany, to him, was supposed to be the global economic power, but according to researchers and historians, the West did not want that to be, and that was one of the biggest reasons why they had to stop Germany, so they did not become a global economic superpower. Here's some interesting news from the Register. Organ banks on horizon as boffins prep tissue freeze tech. Okay, what does that mean? Worryingly, experiments include human cells and flies. Once again, disregarding the warnings of science fiction, boffins in America are seeking to develop technology which will allow human parts to be frozen indefinitely in organ banks for use in on-demand transplants. The goal is to make human cells survive on ice. 24 hours on ice is pushing it, and many people die waiting. And I'm not going to say too much about it, but this is kind of dangerous because now you're making it easier for harvesting of organs. But then again, they say disregarding the warnings of science fiction. Well, no, people like Huxley and them, they were aware of what was coming, not because, like I said, they look in a crystal ball, but because they were very closely tied with eugenicists, which are geneticists, in the genes and stuff like that. But no, they're just telling you what's coming down the road. So, and of course we call it the military-industrial complex. And so, no, they're not going to they're not disregarding it. They're just moving forward. You see, that's why when anything has to do with privacy, that they just go ahead and do it. That's why they do that, because they don't answer to anybody. They're just letting the public know what they're doing. So this is says study suggests link between diet sodas and preterm delivery. Says, could drinking one or more artificially sweetened carbonated diet sodas a day boost a woman's odds of premature delivery? A new study from Denmark suggests such a link. The researchers look at soft drink habits of nearly 60,000 Danish women enrolled in a national study there from 1996 to 2002. Investigators found a link between the intake of a diet carbonated drinks and, to a lesser extent, diet non-carbonated drinks and delivering a baby early. Said the team found no association between the premature delivery and the intake of carbonated sweetened with sugar. However, compared with those who never drank the beverages, women who downed 4 or more diet artificially sweetened aspartame is what they're... Why don't they just say that, you know? Why don't you just come out and say sucralose, aspartame? I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Carbonated drinks a day were 78% more likely to deliver earlier than women who never drank the beverages, and those who had 4 or more diet non-carbonated drinks daily were 29% more likely to deliver early. So this is what you call eugenics, guys. This says UN says 800,000 cut off by Pakistani floods. I'm sure most of you are aware of what's going on over there. But it says about 800,000 people have been cut off by floods in Pakistan and are only reachable by air. The United Nations said Tuesday, adding it needs at least 40 more helicopters to ferry life-saving aid to increasingly desperate people. This next article is titled, Finland suspends swine flu shots at their vaccine linked with neurological disorder. Cases of narcolepsy in children jumped 300% following H1N1 vaccination campaign. I covered this article yesterday about this, but it's just following up, saying that they actually are suspending the flu shots. Finland's National Institute for Health and Welfare has suspended the use of the H1N1 vaccine over fears that the shot is linked with a 300% increase in the cases of the neurological disorder, narcolepsy, among children and young people over the last 6 months. Well, then we better give them 2 shots, right? That's what the CDC and the UN and the WHO, that's what they recommend. Two shots, 2 pokes. That's what they say. And neurological disorders. Says the news is sure to discourage more parents from vaccinating their children in the coming months, with the swine flu shot now being combined with regular seasonal flu jab. Oh yeah, and don't forget that they're also combining the swine flu shot in with the regular flu shot. And why are they doing that? Well, it just makes it easier, right? It's easier to carry out eugenics if you can just do it all at once. That way, you know, because people are kind of hesitant to have to get one shot and another shot. It says a recent Rasmussen poll found that 52% of Americans were concerned about the safety of vaccines as we approach the start of school and college terms, where many children and teenagers will be, this is important, guys, required to take shots before they attend. And when I saw this article, I almost dropped dead. This flu season's goal is more shots sooner. No, I'm not kidding. You are seeing this. August 25th, 2010, from the Wall Street Journal. Federal health officials are gearing up to persuade more Americans to get vaccinated against the flu this fall, in the aftermath of last year's pandemic that killed thousands nationwide, sickened millions, and frustrated many before petering out. That is nothing but lies. Wow. Dude, most people didn't take the vaccine last year. That's why they had leftover stockpiles that they contributed or gave to third world nations, because most people ended up not taking the shots because, well, the pandemic wasn't that bad. But man, that is some fear mongering if I've ever seen one. This is from the Raw Story. Study, oil spill cleanup workers suffered chromosome damage. The Spanish fishermen who took part in a cleanup operation at the Prestige oil tanker spill in 2002 have shown symptoms of chromosomal damage and respiratory problems, a study released Tuesday. And why is this important? Well, because, and BP and the little oil spill down there in the Gulf, they told workers, cleanup spill workers, that they didn't need respiratory masks. And when they tried to bring them, they told them, well, you're not going to work here anymore, so just don't wear them. This is all about how video games are used by the military to recruit young killbots. Vive la France! French sabotage GMO